reported and totally ignored. The Clintons now embroiled in their own for-profit university controversy, joining presumptive Republican nominee Donald Trump in that regard. We have the law professor who wrote the piece that shot this story into the headlines with us tonight. Jonathan Turley's here. But first, Trace Gallagher lays out the details. Trace?
Megan, during her presidential campaign, Hillary Clinton has vowed to crack down on federal aid that flows to for-profit colleges, saying, quoting here, "There are students who take out loans to pay for an expensive degree from a for-profit institution, only to find little support once they actually enroll." And yet, when Hillary Clinton arrived at the State Department in 2009, she requested that Laureate be included in her State Department higher education dinner. Laureate is a company that runs 80 for-profit colleges in 30 countries, including 5 schools here in the U.S. In her email requesting Laureate be included in the dinner, Hillary Clinton wrote that Laureate was, quote, started by Doug Becker, who likes Bill a lot, or who Bill likes a lot. Bill, of course, being the former president, who a few months after the dinner was hired by Doug Becker to become Laureate's honorary chancellor. And between 2010 and 2015, Bloomberg Media says Laureate paid Bill Clinton $16.5 million. Laureate also reportedly spent $200 million a year on aggressive marketing to enroll students, mostly in Latin American countries. The Washington Post wrote in 2014 about accusations that Laureate was boosting revenue by turbocharging enrollment, often without the parallel increase in academic investment. And the National Accreditation Commission in Chile said a Laureate school in Santiago had graduation rates as low as 15%. We should also note the founder of Laureate, Doug Becker, donated between $1 and $5 million to the Clinton Foundation. Becker also runs the International Youth Foundation, an organization that had long received grants from the State Department, but during Hillary Clinton's time as Secretary of State, those grants increased dramatically. Laureate told us it did not receive a penny of the grant money given to the International Youth Foundation. Megan.
Trace, thank you. Joining me now, the man whose blog brought this story back into the headlines, Professor Jonathan Turley of George Washington University Law School. He's a constitutional law attorney. Great to see you, Professor. Thanks for being back with us. So just, I mean, it's confusing, but do you tell me whether I have the basics right? This guy Becker hires Bill Clinton and pays him $16 million over the course of 4 years. Becker's, right. one of Becker's groups that he's associated with gets money from the State Department. Oh, that worked out well. Then Becker's, a different Becker group gives money back to the Clinton Foundation. So it's just this circle of Becker who's got a couple different groups. One pays Bill, one gets money from the State Department, and round it goes in this sort of web like we've seen so often around the Clintons.
Well, you know, it's this company is simply enormous. It's about $4 billion of assets, and it's often pointed to as really what's wrong with the direction of education.
Laureate universities.
Right. These for-profit companies to education are what McDonald's is to culinary arts. You know, they produce things at the lowest possible cost with questionable ingredients, and they leave often students with debt, with not many opportunities.
Right.
But they also
same thing. Students who are struggling, students we should not be taking advantage of, and so it's controversial even to have the Clintons associated with that at all, especially given her stance on it. But they were that we know they were.
Yeah, and to give the former president this obscene amount of money, I mean, $16.5 million. Now, what we can see is that he did give speeches in various countries. But the size of this contract, which was not initially disclosed, the media tried to get this information out of both the company and the Clintons without much success. And what I believe you have here is some serious questions. Now, that doesn't mean that this is the same as Trump University. I think that there are distinctions.
Oh, wait, let me stop you because it's confusing enough to talk about Laureate. So Laureate gives Bill Clinton $16.5 million over 4 years. He's basically like their chancellor. I mean, he's running around giving the speeches. And they're trying to open up in all these countries. It would be very nice to have a good relationship with the State Department, and she happens to be Secretary of State. But then the State Department doesn't give money to Laureate, this group. The State Department gives money to an organization run by the same guy who runs Laureate, this Becker guy who the Clintons love. So it just gives you the feeling everybody's in bed together, which the Clintons deny and Laureate denies, but it smells.
Well, there's no question that you did have all of this money going and coming from different directions. The one common denominator is, in fact, Mr. Becker, who has involvement with both Laureate and the International Youth Foundation. And there's no question also that Laureate benefited greatly from the association, not just with Bill Clinton, but with Hillary Clinton. This is a company with most of its activities abroad. And to be able to have the picture of Bill Clinton there with the connection to Hillary Clinton, to countries that rely on the United States for foreign aid, have strong relations with the State Department, that's obviously an enormous advantage.
And Laureate did make donations in the Clinton Foundation.
Yes, and the point of my blog column was that there are legitimate concerns here. I mean, for academics, for educators, this company has long been controversial. Now, I'm not a big fan, obviously, of for-profit educational companies, but this company has been repeatedly criticized for making education into a commodity to be sold at the lowest possible cost. It's not something you would normally expect a former president to be associated with, but to have the husband of the Secretary of State with an international company of this kind raises some legitimate questions.
And those questions will continue if the media does its job. Professor Jonathan Turley, thanks for calling it.